There's potentially a game-changing element here that, again, I don't think we're talking about clinically, and that's potentially going to change a lot of people's lives if this is a connection that you find with yourselves. G'day and welcome back to the channel. So in today's video, I want to talk to you about something that I'm finding that's really interesting clinically that I don't think anyone's talking about in regards to sensitive teeth and toothaches. And what I want to do in this video is I want to talk about a potential hidden connection that I think is being either completely overlooked or potentially misunderstood in regards to the cause of sensitive teeth and toothaches. And then what I want to touch on is I want to give you guys a diagnostic tool or a self-assessment tool that doubles as a treatment technique that you can implement today to see if there is a very strong connection between this specific area of your body and any symptoms you may have in regards to sensitive teeth or toothaches. Then what I want to touch on towards the end of the video, like we always do with these videos, is I want to make sure that we give you some broader context and a broader understanding about potentially why this connecting feature is occurring. That not only can you have your teeth looked after by your dentist, and hopefully they do a fantastic job of that, but we're hopefully going to fill in a lot of information around this that may be contributing to that, or at least causing those symptoms. You've got a very strong understanding of what the bigger picture might be, what you might need to implement to stop this particular symptom from coming back again. So before we get into this, obviously, please consider subscribing to the channel if you're new, leaving a like rating on the video. If you find this video genuinely helpful, then please consider leaving a super thanks donation on the video. It's a great way to help support the channel and help us grow going forward. So the first thing I want to talk about is my experience and what I'm finding to potentially be true in regards to sensitive teeth and toothaches. Now, like all the videos on this channel, I want to make it very clear that this is a representation of what I'm finding clinically. This isn't necessarily based on an extensive appraisal of the research. So if you have any research on this topic, please leave the link below in the comments, because this is potentially a big deal for a lot of people. Now, the other thing that I wanted to talk about before we get into this, one of the things that we tend to do in the industry, in the medical industry, is that we tend to have a very narrow focus. So if you have a tooth issue or an apparent tooth issue, you have every right to go and see your dentist, and I would definitely encourage you to do that if you have sensitive teeth or a toothache. Make sure that you don't have anything specific going on that needs addressing, which is the cause of that toothache or sensitive teeth. One of the things I don't think we do a great job in the broader medical industry, taking a step back and considering that there may be other things going on outside of that specific niche. So for example, the connection that I'm finding here with my patients is that if you have a toothache, if you have sensitive teeth, there may be a very strong but hidden connection between your neck and your teeth. If we're just looking at the very specifics of where your toothache is, then we're potentially missing the broader connection between some potential neck dysfunction and causing some referred pain or some referred symptoms to those teeth, or at the very least emphasizing some isolated dysfunction that you may have. For example, you chip your tooth and you develop a toothache, or maybe for a couple of days you have sensitive teeth because of that. What may be contributing to this is if you have some subtle neck dysfunction, whether we're talking stiff joints, tight tissue there, maybe that tissue's overloaded, maybe you're encroaching on some neural issues, maybe the nerve root from your neck that supplies your teeth or at least influences your teeth may be not compromised, but maybe aggravated or irritated or overloaded or included in a conversation, and it may add a pain tax on top of that isolated dysfunction. What I'm finding with my patients is potentially, even if you don't have specific tooth issues, there's a section of your neck, which is around that C3, C4 level. It can be a little bit higher for some, potentially a little bit lower for others. And there are some referral patterns that come from that section of your neck. It can include your jaw and your teeth. Now, I've done a previous video on the connections that I'm finding between, jaw pain. So TMJ or temporomandibular joint dysfunction and that same section of your neck. And I'll leave a link up here. You'll see the thumbnail hopefully here somewhere. So what I want to go through in terms of the diagnostic tool and the potential treatment option that you can try yourself, we're going to use a tennis ball or a lacrosse ball. You can hopefully witness a connection once you press the ball in. In this instance, we're going to be looking for specific joint restriction. And by releasing and reducing that joint stiffness, we're going to potentially find a connection and decrease that connection between those individual isolated segments and your toothache or your jaw pain or your sensitive teeth. So before you do this, take a moment to consider maybe how sensitive your teeth may be. So if you need to drink some cold water, maybe eat some hot food, or even if you just close your eyes and try and rate your toothache out of 10. Take a snapshot of how it feels to begin with, do this technique, then reassess this afterwards so that you can gauge exactly how it feels. And then obviously take note of how it feels the next day. Then you can potentially take this information to your dentist and say, right, how much of my symptoms is due to maybe the isolated issue with my tooth, and how much is actually due to your neck being a problem? And the encouraging thing about this, the amazing thing about this, which I want to get across to you guys, is we're looking at a potential fix. So if you're someone who's had sensitive teeth or a toothache on and off for a long time, and you haven't had your neck looked at, then potentially you're missing the most important part of the equation if you've had extensive dental work and that's not necessarily fixing the problem for you. So there's potentially a game-changing element here that, again, I don't think we're talking about clinically, and that's potentially going to change a lot of people's lives if this is a connection that you find with yourself. So getting into the exercise, is you want to take the ball and we're going to place it into the column of your neck where the joints are. You want to find the bumps down the middle of your neck, place the ball in that area, and then just let it roll off to the side. Now, the important thing about this that we're going to get to while we're doing this is we don't want to be seduced by what side your symptoms are on. You might find there's actually some dysfunction on the opposite side of your neck. In my experience, about 50% of cases has the original dysfunction on the opposite side to where the symptoms are, but then obviously the other half of people have it all on the same side. So we don't want to miss it. So just keep in mind that you might actually be working on the opposite side to where you might expect. So with the ball again, we're going to take the ball, we're going to lie down onto your back. Now you can do this leaning up against a wall, you can do it sitting on a chair. All you need is something that you feel comfortable that allows you to push the ball into your neck. So again, I'm right up the top of my neck at the base of my skull. I'm going to turn my head to the side a little bit. And what I'm looking for here is I'm not looking for muscular tightness or tenderness. I'm looking for a sensation of stiffness or rustiness. If you're not sure what that symptom feels like, roll the ball across to the exact same spot on the other side and compare the two sides. And what you'll find is one side should feel like the ball doesn't sink in as well as it does on the other side, but you want to have the ball on the side that feels the stiffest. So don't just be sucking into where you feel your symptoms are, because we want to restore normal motion and normal function to your entire neck, not just one specific side or one specific segment. And all we're doing here is we're not rolling around. Once you've found a spot that you feel is important or connected or interesting, then we want to let the ball just press in. But hopefully what you'll feel is the longer you're here, the more relaxed and looser that tissue may become. So if you feel that you get a referred sensation to where your teeth are sensitive, or if you get that toothache reproduced by doing this, that's a very, very clear sign that your symptoms or your facial symptoms, your tooth-related symptoms are related to your neck. So once you've had enough with the first spot, literally move the ball down a fraction until you feel like you hit another spot that feels stiff or tight. Repeat the same process, compare sides. For most people, the restriction is going to be down the same side all the way down. So once you've pretty confident you know which side to be on, it'll generally be down the same side in my experience. Go down as low as you feel you need to reduce as much of that restriction as possible. And then when you become upright again, quickly reassess how you feel. Do you feel like there's a subtle change, any genuine observable change in the severity of your toothache? Take another drink, the same drink, make sure that it's cold or warm, whatever you feel triggers your sensitive teeth, and do a genuine comparison of a before and afterwards so that you don't have to take my word for this. You can see the genuine change if there is some. Then obviously come back to this video maybe in a couple of hours or the next day and let me know if your symptoms have changed again from that experience. I want to pass that on. I want to make sure that you're very aware that there's potentially a hidden cause, if not at very least a contributing factor to sensitive teeth and toothaches that we're just not talking about. I think we need to. It has the potential to change a lot of people's lives who suffer from really severe cases of this sort of stuff. Now, as promised at the start of the video, the final thing that I want to talk about to connect all of this together is we need to have a very specific conversation about why the section of your neck that you're potentially finding is connected to these issues is there in the first place. You don't deserve to have random stiffness, tightness, dysfunction in your neck. And invariably, when you start asking questions and you get a sense of what people do day to day, the very distinct pattern that emerges for almost every single person in this instance, and almost any instance in regards to neck dysfunction, is the position and the shape that you put your head and neck into day to day matters. So if you're someone who has some dysfunction in a very specific part of your neck, there has to be a position or a shape that you're in every day, maybe multiple times a day for periods of time throughout the day, that includes that section of your neck more than it's designed to handle over time. So instead of being in a perfect posture, it's very likely that you're either looking down enough to bring that level of your neck in, or potentially looking up depending on what you're doing. But for most people, that is either doing the boring things like using your phone, using a laptop, sitting in a bad position at a computer, at your desk looking down all the time. It can be something as simple as playing an instrument. The overarching theme here is you don't deserve to have stiffness, tightness, and dysfunction in your neck if you're in good enough postures for long enough throughout the day. If you are finding some great benefit from the ball exercise in regards to your teeth issues, you then need to make sure that you're taking a step back to understand why those issues have been allowed to occur in the first place. If you're finding that there's some obvious things that you never thought about in terms of your head and neck position that you can get better at, make sure that you value that and you take steps to improve that going forwards. Because if you can, then all the hard work of freeing this up, all the dentistry that you may or may not have had done, will suddenly have a chance to be better and to resolve long term, because you're potentially looking at this from a more broader perspective and then taking care of all the subtle components to this dysfunction. So as I said, it's an exciting topic for me to talk about because it's one of a number of things that I'm finding clinically that I just don't think I don't want to say that we haven't discovered yet, because I'm sure someone's figuring this sort of stuff out as well. But for me personally, I'm just not seeing this stuff talked about, or at least talked about enough clinically. I want to hopefully bring that to you guys with this channel. So please subscribe if you are interested in this sort of information and you want to go along this journey with me. Leave a like rating down below. Consider leaving a super thanks if you found that this was very helpful for you. And then we'll see you in the next one. Bye.